4 decisions I made when I turned 40. Obviously, I didn't make them all overnight when I turned 40, but a lot of these are things that I've been thinking about for a long time, and they really crystallized around the time that I turned 40, which is almost 10 years ago. Crazy. But these 4 things I want to talk about today have made a big difference in my life. Decision means cut off thinking, right? So once you make a decision, you stop going back and forth, considering the options and oh, should I do this or should I do that? No, you decide. You cut off thinking. This is now what you're going to do. But in real life, this process of learning and changing and establishing new habits and patterns is way more complex than that, right? We make some progress, then we mess up again. We take a couple steps back, and then we recommit. So yes, decision means cut off thinking, but we also have to allow some room and be patient with ourselves. Number 1, only spend time with people that make me feel good. It's really simple, but it took me a long time to actually live that. And I don't think it's realistic to expect people to always make us feel great. Sometimes it's challenging to hang out with a friend who's going through something, but if it becomes something that repeats and repeats and repeats, this person's just constantly complaining about something, or this person is always drunk, or they never take responsibility for any of their problems, right? They play the victim. I find that very, very exhausting. And so over the last years, I've really phased out a lot of these friendships, and I have set boundaries. Like, we can meet for lunch if you're in town, but I'm not going to spend the weekend with you, or I'm not going to party with you anymore because I know what that leads to. I don't want to participate in that. So I will not put myself in those situations. You set limits, you limit them, and you limit the amount of time that they can occupy from you. Unless, and this I think is the big exception, unless you have committed to someone, right? Family member or a good friend or a significant other who is going through something, and it's tough to be around them because they're dealing with something that's tough, but they are committed to changing. They are aware of the problem, and they're trying to get better, right? They're seeking help. They're actively trying to get better. So I think then we can be more patient with them. We can say, okay, this person's kind of sucking my energy out of me, and they're draining me a bit, but I'm really committed to this person, and I love this person, so I'm gonna stick around. But then I think it's not infinite, right? It will have kind of an expiration date. At some point that gets really boring, and if nothing changes and you keep having the same conversation over and over and over, and the person's not really taking any action, then once again I think it's important to set boundaries and to say, hey, I don't want to have this conversation with you anymore because we've been having the same conversation for 3 years or whatever it may be. And again, I'm not saying that I only hang out with people that are always positive, right? I find those people just as annoying as the people that are super negative. You have this toxic positivity thing, right? Everyone's happy, 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 always high energy, and wow, I find that pretty exhausting as well. But my main thing is not hanging around people who complain. I just don't want to be around people who complain, who see everything through this kind of glass half empty perspective, and most of all think they're victims, right? They have this kind of victim personality, like things happen to them and everyone else is at fault, and why does this always happen to me? Da, 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 da. I think mostly we are where we are because we put ourselves there. Yes, circumstances can be tough, and circumstances can sometimes pile up, and people can really be victim of circumstances. But generally, I think I'm more eager these days to spend time with people that are aware of a problem, but really focusing on what they can do to make it better, right? Kind of solution focused. Once again, I'm not saying that it has to be positive. Let's never talk about a problem. I think we have to see problems for what they are. We have to see reality clearly. And we have to see a problem for what it is so that we can take action. And I don't think we have to click with everyone. I think we have to make room for people to not like us, right? To think we're a jerk or arrogant or dumb or superficial or whatever opinions people might have of us. Because if we put this pressure on ourselves to be liked by everyone, which is very unrealistic, it's just a no-win situation, right? Not everyone's going to like us. And just be honest, do you like everybody? There you go. The second decision I made, which also took a long time to really get, was to not make assumptions, right? About why something is happening or why someone is acting a certain way. Being an actor in the US especially was really good training for this, because you go on lots of job interviews or auditions, and most of the time when you don't get a part, you just never hear from them again. You never find out why. There's no reason given. So it's easy to start looking for, well, why is this happening? And sure, if you never book a job, maybe you should be taking more classes, or there's something, you go to somebody for advice, somebody who really knows, has your best interest at heart. Could I be doing something to, I really had to sit myself down over and over and not make these assumptions, because it was driving me crazy, right? Not only does that make you feel bad about yourself, but it's also just half of the picture, right? Sure, maybe I didn't get this part because I wasn't good enough, whatever that means, or I wasn't prepared enough. Maybe if I knew the dialogue better, or if I'd had spent a couple more days really working on, right, the character or the situation the character's in. But also, there's a lot of other factors that go into casting, like the looks of someone. Like, are they close to someone that's already in the show? Are they too short, too tall? All these things that now factor into casting are completely out of my control. So to make an assumption that I didn't get this job because I'm not good enough, or because I'm too fat, too skinny, too young, too old, whatever, doesn't make sense. We have to see the whole picture. And it also doesn't help us to think that the fault lies with us. Also, when I get a job, it doesn't mean I was the best actor, right? They might have had some actors who gave better auditions, but I got the job because they were looking for this type. So I'm also not going to go, oh, I got this because I rock, I'm the best actor out there. No, I got this job because I was right for this project, for this time, for this role, and that's it. Nowadays, with online dating, another area where I think assumptions can be very harmful is someone's not writing you back after a date, or someone's not writing you back after exchanging 2 messages, right? All this stuff is just crazy, and we connect with someone and then all of a sudden it evaporates, right? They delete you or block you, unmatch you, whatever. And it's like, wait, we were just talking. Or you meet someone and you have a good time and then nothing. So it's really hard for people, and people make these assumptions that they either were acting weird on the date, or maybe I said something wrong, or no, none of that stuff is helpful at all. This was just about them, right? Even if they weren't interested in me, great. I don't want to be with someone that's not interested in me. So, but making the assumption that I did something wrong and that's why, right? Waste of time. Or catastrophizing is something that I used to do a lot, right? So if your significant other is driving for 3 hours, every day, or hopefully not every day, but every once a week, they're driving 3 hours to do this job somewhere, and this, and you talk to them when they leave, and then usually they check in with you halfway through, and they check in with you when they get there. But this time, you don't hear anything from them, and you kind of know it's bad weather, like they told you it was raining or whatever, and they also sounded tired. So then I used to completely go off the rails, imagining all these horrible things that could have happened, right? An accident, maybe a really bad accident, or they stopped somewhere and then something happened at this gas station, or right? And so I used to spend hours thinking about this. And then you can't concentrate on anything else. And once again, it's only seeing half the picture, right? Now, your significant other might be listening to a podcast. They might be on the phone with their mother, who they're finally calling back because she's been nagging them. And once they're on the phone with their mom, it just takes forever. So yes, bad things can happen. Those things are possible, but there's also a lot of harmless things that could happen that they're just as likely. They're actually way more likely than a bad accident happening, because thankfully they don't happen all the time to people we love. So I think not forgetting that all these other things that are completely harmless are also possible. And then a step further, not making the assumption that them not writing us like they always do means that they don't care about us, right? So, not making assumptions about behavior or circumstances, I think, is a very powerful thing. And it's a great way to not waste a bunch of energy worrying, because worrying never changes anything. On a deeper, more primal level, your relationship with your parents is also, for example, something where making assumptions can be very harmful to us. So, my father, for many, many, many years, thought that the way he treated me, the way he behaved toward me, was a reflection of myself, that I wasn't this enough, I wasn't that enough. And it took a lot of therapy and a lot of time thinking about this and reading books and etc. to realize that it's not a reflection of me. This is just how he is. He can't give anymore. He can't do anymore. He can't do any better because this is who he is. He was that way with my sister as well. Sure. Did I trigger him maybe in a different way than my sister did? Absolutely. I think father-son is a way more loaded and complex relationship. But I stopped making the assumption that what my father did or did not do had anything to do with me, and accepted who he is, which was also painful to realize, okay, well, he's never going to be this father that I would like to have or that I would like to have had, right? Never gonna happen. That was a big leap for me when I finally accepted this is who my dad is, and what he did or failed to do has nothing to do with me. Number 3, I will not accept my thoughts or emotions as truth anymore. I will not accept my thoughts and feelings without questioning them anymore. Not only will I not accept my thoughts and feelings without questioning them anymore, but I will distrust my thoughts and feelings now when they come up, especially if they're negative, right? There are 2 questions I ask myself now when a thought or feeling pops in my head that is disturbing or that doesn't make me feel good, right? The first question is from Byron Katie, and she has this, she developed this thing called The Work. And one of the things she has are these 4 questions to question a belief or an idea to see if it's really true, or to stop identifying with something, right? I will put a link to her work in the description box below to these 4 questions, because I'm only going to talk about the first one, because my process kind of dealing with thoughts and emotions is about asking myself 2 questions. And the first one is from Byron Katie, and it's, is this idea or thought true? Let's go back to earlier, right? I got rejected, or I didn't get this job because I'm not good enough. Is it true? Did I get rejected? Did I not get this job because I'm not good enough, or because I'm too old, or because whatever? Who knows? I don't know. Making that assumption is making me feel horrible, but it's also not true, right? There's many other things that are just as likely to be true. So I'm ruling that out. If I don't know for certain that it's true, the second question is this helpful? Is this thought or belief or whatever, is this helpful? If it's not helpful, I toss it. I do not believe that thought. If it's not true and it's not helpful, why think it, right? Just let it pass through. What's important here is to toss it, to not, think about it, to just let it move through is very different than to attack it, to resist it, to push against it. Like, why am I thinking this? Why am I feeling like this? What's wrong with me that I'm still having these thoughts? No, thoughts just come up. We have no control over our thoughts, right? Whether you want to call it the monkey brain or whatever, right? It's just automatic. We can't control our thoughts and emotions. And so investigating whether something is true before I start interpreting and trying to give it meaning, right? Is it true? If I can't say that it's true, is it helpful? And if it's not helpful, bye. If it is true, I will deal with it, right? We have to see life clearly, and we have to see problems. We have to look at things and we have to face them. If it isn't true, but it's helpful, let's say, God, I'm drinking too much. I think I'm an alcoholic. Maybe I'm not an alcoholic. Maybe I'm just hanging out with the wrong kind of people. But it's helpful because I can start thinking about, do I really want to hang out with these people? If I never have the thought, wait a second, I'm drinking too much, right? If I never have that thought, then I'm just going to drink and drink and drink and do things to my body that are very unhealthy. So having a thought that makes you feel bad, that might not be true, but might be true, but it's definitely helpful, that's a very good thing. So for possible addictions, I think this is helpful, right? Is my significant other cheating? I don't know if that's true. If I know it's true, then I will deal with it, right? I will get out of that relationship, or I will challenge them, or whatever. But if I don't know if it's true, is it helpful? Is it helpful to make them feel like they're doing something wrong? Probably not, right? It might be good to have a conversation about why you're feeling those feelings and maybe take responsibility for your jealousy, right? Let's work on that. Why do I keep feeling like something is wrong that is not wrong? We all have experienced this mind-blowing shift when something good happens to us, right? A circumstance changes, we do get this job, and all of a sudden we're on cloud nine, right? We're feeling so happy, like all of our problems disappeared. Doesn't last very long usually, but and then on the other end of the spectrum, something bad happens and we completely identify with that. We get consumed by this thing, right? We lose a job, we have to move out of our apartment, the relationship ends, and we completely identify with that circumstance. And I think either is dangerous, right? We want to sort of be somewhere in the middle and not overly identify with the good stuff and not overly identify with the bad stuff, because getting a job, which might have some major financial benefits, right? Or not getting a job doesn't change who I am. I'm still this person who, prepares, shows up continuously, sometimes doesn't prepare as much as they should, whatever, right? I'm human. But how are those things, those changes in circumstance, how can they have such a huge emotional impact? And how can they make us feel like different people when we're not? Let's not give these things too much weight, positive or negative, because the only thing for certain is that things will always change, right? Nothing is permanent, everything is temporary. So I think trying to find this middle path and not identifying with either good or bad stuff is the way to go. But much easier said than done, right? The fourth decision I made, and it probably has made the biggest impact in my life, is to treat myself like I would a good friend. And this is especially important when things get hard, when we're struggling with something and we tend to, or I tend to, especially in the past, I've gotten so much better at this, to attack myself, right? To blame myself, to wish I was different, to wish I was like all these other people that seemingly have it all figured out, and then make myself feel a lot worse than I normally would, simply because of how I'm constantly piling on all this other negative stuff. I realized that the way I talked to myself was so negative. And again, therapy helped a lot, and reading books and watching YouTube videos and podcasts and all that stuff that we have available to us is amazing, right? We can really educate ourselves. But I learned that my self-talk was way more negative than I thought, because my baseline was already so negative that all the stuff that I was saying to myself was not even kind of getting registered. And once I started paying attention, I realized, oh my God, this is crazy. Why am I speaking this way to myself? When a friend of mine is not doing well, I don't make them feel bad. I don't pile on some negative stuff when they're already down, right? Like, it's probably your fault that this happened, or but this keeps happening to you, you must be an idiot, or yeah, you're probably ugly if nobody wants to date you. No, you treat your friends with kindness. You are soft and loving toward them. But for some reason, it's much harder to do with myself. Would you talk to a good friend the way you talk to yourself? I don't think so. When I'm being really mean to myself, especially in the past, years ago, when I was just so hateful toward myself without realizing it, right? If you act that way to a good friend, they probably are not going to hang out with you anymore. But somehow with ourselves, we let ourselves get away with it, because sometimes I think something has become so habitual that we don't even notice it anymore, right? It's become, the volume has been turned down and it's constantly happening, and It's like a radio on low volume in the kitchen that you're too lazy to turn off, but it just keeps playing and you don't hear it anymore. So treating myself with patience, with kindness, with love, even though that word really triggers me and used to trigger me so much. It doesn't trigger me with other people, but with me, interestingly enough, it really triggers me. I read this book by Brian Tracy a while ago. This book is called Maximum Achievement, and it's really a business productivity, goal setting book mostly. And I've read a lot of those, and a lot of those have kind of similar things in them. But there's this one chapter where he talks about self-love. And I always have a really hard time with this thing of, look at yourself in the mirror and say, I love you, or it just makes me cringe, right? Maybe because it's too far away from where I'm at or where I used to be at, right? When I was reading those books, the thought of telling myself I love you in the mirror would just make me want to, I don't know, scream. But in this chapter in Maximum Achievement, he says that when he noticed that he was talking to himself in a very negative way, he started saying, I like myself, to himself. Sometimes in the mirror, but not. But just during the day, whenever he thought about it, I like myself. And somehow that one worked for me because it also made me think, if I can't even say I like myself, that's kind of sad. I want to at least like myself, right? I'm not a bad person. I'm not going around hurting people. I'm really doing my best to make something of my life. I'm good to my friends, to my family. I'm doing my best. So I want to be able to say I like myself. So I really applied myself to that, and I incorporated that into my day for a while. And it made a big difference. Every time you say I like myself to yourself, it's like a little boost, right? You feel good. And you're just saying it in here, right? No one can hear you, so no one's going to think you're crazy. But just going, I like myself. Having that thought a few times during the day made a big difference to me. So check out that chapter in Brian Tracy's Maximum Achievement. I will put a link in the description box below. Treating myself like I would a good friend also includes tough love sometimes, but mostly because I tend to go toward the negative with myself. Mostly treating myself like a good friend means being more positive and supportive with myself, right? Saying things to myself like, hey, that was hard and you did it. Good for you. Or, man, I'm proud of myself. I started this YouTube channel in my late 40s and I'm almost at 1,000 subscribers. This latest video didn't get a lot of views, but this is big what I'm doing and I'm proud of myself, right? These things were really hard for me in the past, but they're getting easier because I've made this connection with, I do want to treat myself well. Why would I treat myself less well than a good friend? So that's it for this video. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you soon.